Next on POV. What do we lose when we lose the night?
I can't even see one star.
When stars disappear in the glare of city skylines. Take a journey to America's brightest and darkest corners. The City Dark on POV. Stay tuned following this program to hear from the filmmaker and to find out how you can share your point of view. Major funding for POV has been provided by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation and the National Endowment for the Arts, which believes that a great nation deserves great art. Additional support provided by and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
What is it? This is November 25th. I can't even see one star. November 25th at 6 o'clock in the freezing cold. Is that a star? Oh yeah. Oh, there's another. 2. Oh, now I'm getting it. 6. Or no, I cut that one, I think. And I can only see about half of the sky because of this building. So we'll assume there's 12 stars.
So I live in a city, a big city, with 8 million people and, on most nights, only a few dozen stars. I'd grown up spending much of my childhood in rural Maine. Small town, 4,000 people. At night, more stars than I could count, or even capture with my camera. I built my own telescope out of an old cardboard tube, attended astronomy camp, and invented my own constellations from the stars above my parents' old barn. I'd never stopped to wonder what those dark, starry nights meant to me. But when I moved to the city, I felt at once like I was at the center of the world under all those lights. And like I'd left something important behind. Something I couldn't name. What do we lose when we lose the night?
I don't know of a civilization that didn't have some kind of mythology about the night sky.
Well, if you were near the end of your life and you were looking back, surely one of the things you'd ask yourself is, did I see the world? And what's out there in the sky, that's the ultimate horizon. That's as far as you can go.
I worry that our lack of contact with the sky is doing something to us that's very subtle.
A lot of people don't know much about the sky because there's always kinds of weird phenomena. That's why there's so many UFOs around. Of course, a lot of crazy people around too, but they see a light moving around or a meteor. They never seen a meteor. They call it UFO. You know, in a sense to them it's a UFO because they're not used to looking at the sky. If they do look at the sky and do catch something, they don't understand what it's all about. Most people. But Americans are not known for their knowledge.
Professor Irving Robbins is an astronomer who runs one of the last remaining observatories in New York City.
Welcome to the College of Staten Island, located on Staten Island, which is one of the 5 boroughs of the city of New York. Because Staten Island is in the United States on planet Earth, so welcome. There she goes. I've seen twice the Milky Way in New York when there's a blackouts. In 1966, I was in Brooklyn. I was working in Bedford-Stuyvesant. Lights all went out. And there I was. I could not believe the heavens. I was like on the deserts. I mean, the whole Northeast went out. And the sky was spectacular. Just beautiful. It was really beautiful. As you know, in New York, there's a light pollution problem. We're limited to how far deep in space we can go. When you look at the sky, the light in the sky really is a sum total of everything around you. It's like I have a beautiful painting, right? Very nice. But now I come along with an eraser and I erase all of it and just leave a few spots. Because that's what light pollution does.
What astronomers call light pollution occurs when lights shining upward bounce off dust and particulates in the air, causing the very sky to glow. To live in New York these days is to live under a kind of illuminated tent, a dome of light. But it wasn't always. In the past, people used stars to navigate the seas. On the earth below, the only lights for thousands of years were crude torches, campfires, and candles. By the 17th and 18th centuries, oil lamps powered by whale oil illuminated Manhattan. In the early 1800s, gas lighting was introduced. And finally, in the late 19th century, a new form of lighting emerged.
It has been said, correctly I think, that there is no better symbol of modern progress than the advent of electricity in general, but electric lighting in particular.
This doesn't bother me. Bothers a lot of people, though. And I tell people, what if you came into a light store that looked like that? Wouldn't you wonder, what kind of place it is? About 75,000 light bulbs back here, approximately, different types. It was my father who was in the business, and my grandfather was also in the business, and he knew Edison. My grandfather was an inventor, so he, was friendly with Thomas Edison, and my grandfather was there when things started. This one is an original Edison light bulb, and these still actually work. $1879 was the first light bulb. More light. As you went up in generations, the brightness increased. They were trying to maximize the amount of light. Self-ballasted mercury vapor. Then they came out with high-pressure sodium, which was a yellowish light. And that one gets even brighter than this. And then they came out with the metal halide. That's this. That one, you could cook a meal on that. That's how hot this one gets. You look at this after, you won't be able to see for a while. Believe me, today I see new stuff that's coming out. It's like, wow.
As I've gotten older, I notice I have to go farther and farther from wherever there's any civilization in order to see the sky, to be part of the universe. I began to do all of my observing from down at Jones Beach, which in 1973 was still reasonably dark. Unfortunately, night no longer comes to Jones Beach. Pretty much no matter which side you went from, there were telescopes everywhere. This now, there isn't even a handle to get in here. I wonder what they do. We determined the length of an asteroid from here. We measured some double stars from here, depending on the season of the year. It might be Orion in the winter, or Scorpius and Sagittarius in the summer, with the Milky Way coming up like the steam from the teapot. Great place to be.
Cities have always been kind of overburdened with lights. I think you're allowed to have some expectation, though, that when you leave the city, 10 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles, that the sky should start to come back to you.
Troop 718 has been in this neighborhood since 1911. New York wasn't quite as bright then as it is now. They didn't have the sodium lamps or whatever they use these days. And we were talking about, you know, what if you get lost in the woods? And someone mentioned that they had read or heard somewhere that you don't have to worry so much these days. You just have to head towards the pinkish glow in the sky because everything is so bright, no matter how far you are in the woods. It's good to get the kids out. I don't know if it's going to change their lives necessarily, but the whole point is that they see something different.
There's so much lights in New York City that you can barely see the stars. So when you look up, you only can see the reflection of what all the lights are around the city. So then you look up and you can't see no stars.
You probably see maybe 1 or 2 stars.
There's the one till 9 p.m.
9 p.m.
What time is it? I mean, what day is it? And now look up. Go. Okay.
No, you can see a lot more stars now. Look at the sky. It's mad late. It's all.
Now
look up. Yo, everybody turn off your lights. Turn off your lights for like a quick second.
Oh my God. There's like 100 stars.
I never seen the Milky Way.
I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York, an apartment complex prophetically called the Skyview Apartments. And what happened when I was 9 was a first visit to the Hayden Planetarium here in New York City. There you are in this room, this odd-shaped room. It's round, and it's got a round ceiling, and they turn off the lights. They even have permission to turn off the exit lights, so it's you can't even see the hand in front of your face. And the stars come out, and I was sure it was a hoax. I've seen the night sky from the Bronx. There's a dozen stars there, and there are way too many stars in the Hayden Planetarium for me to believe it. And it would take several years before I recognized that, in fact, this was an accurate capturing of the night sky. To this day, I'm on mountaintops and I look up and I say to this is a sickeningly urban thing to say, but I look up and I say, reminds me of the Hayden Planetarium. You know? What's happened over my lifetime is that you have a kind of sprawl with city lights. Perhaps in the old days it was just homes with street lights, and now it's homes near shopping malls, fully lit parking lots, each of which has its own lights spilling out into the surrounding regions.
Our society is kind of taking over the wilderness, but it's happening slowly and no one really notices it. Now, the sky is just impossibly bright. And so the astronomers have had to flee the population centers and move to the desert and island areas of the world.
The town of Sky Village was created by a man named Jack Newton, one of my childhood heroes, and widely considered to be one of the greatest astrophotographers of our time.
We hunted diligently for dark skies to find this site, the darkest spot in southwestern U.S., and it's been magnificent. My primary instrument here is a 20-inch telescope with a carbon fiber tube.
I have a Meade 16-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope as the primary instrument in there.
This is a H-alpha solar telescope.
It carries piggyback a Takahashi 180 Epsilon astrograph high-speed camera lens.
This is the observatory we're having built here. Telescope mount will be here, and we'll have a 10-foot dome above us here.
So we chase total solar eclipses.
It's a paradise for an astrophotographer to be out here.
We all come from different walks of life, but we have all moved here with one thing in common. We all love the night sky. This is my clubhouse. Every guy wants a clubhouse when he grows up, and this is it.
I was shooting last night, and there's the spiral galaxy. This one is 57 million light years away. So the light left 57 million years ago. This is called the North America Nebula. This is called the heart and the soul. This being the heart and that being the soul. This is Orion's belt, the 3 stars in at the belt. This is the dagger that hangs down from Orion's belt. I would go nuts if I couldn't have the dark night sky. There's a whole universe out there. The Milky Way, when it rises here, looks like a thunderstorm coming towards you. And you think, oh my God, it's going to cloud over. And it's not. It's the Milky Way rising. It's the edge of our galaxy coming up.
Being out under the stars at night, I was reminded of the scale of our world. A scale that's all too easy to forget when you don't have this clear a view of the skies above.
If we didn't have a good view of a dark sky, we wouldn't know we lived in a galaxy like the Milky Way. We wouldn't know that the universe was 50 billion galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of stars. We would know very little about the universe we lived in.
Astronomy is the oldest of the sciences. We can go back and we can trace the development of our inquiry into the universe to the ability to look up to the sky, to see things that you don't understand, that you want to be able to touch and understand. Every civilization that we know about built a science around explaining the sky that was above them that they saw at night.
We're going to a place called Science City.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing very shortly. Please make sure your seatbelts are securely fastened. Mahalo.
It's literally true that there is no better place on this planet to observe than the Hawaiian Islands.
The volcanic islands of Hawaii thrust up out of the Pacific Ocean and all the way through the clouds, giving astronomers clear air and clear skies. On Mauna Kea, some of the world's largest telescopes scan the sky from an altitude of 14,000 feet. And on Haleakala, astronomers have recently built a telescope that they describe as the largest, most light-sensitive camera in history.
This is the Pan-STARRS 1.8 meter telescope.
Its detectors span an area like this behind this plate inside the vacuum. One of the primary reasons for building this thing is we want to find killer asteroids.
Well, the Earth is being hit by stuff all the time. The biggest threat is from objects that are about 1 kilometer in size or more. And if one of those objects hits the Earth, then it produces a global catastrophe. Something like many thousands of H-bombs going off instantaneously.
Detecting asteroids, which are small and dark, depends on having extremely dark skies, which even on Hawaii are threatened by development. But I got the sense that astronomers were worried about a much deeper loss, one tied to their ancient profession of decoding the universe above.
Seeing the universe around us tells us about our own part of the universe, and to close that door, I think would change the character of humankind entirely.
A team of Italian cartographers, piecing together a map of the Earth at night, concluded that 2/3 of all humans now live under skies polluted by artificial light. As they put it, mankind is proceeding to envelop himself in a luminous fog.
We're just heading north, basically to our northern border with Highland Beach. And actually from here you can already see the amount of sky glow we get from that area. The glow looking in that direction is really intense.
Every summer along the Florida coast, thousands of hatching sea turtles emerge from the sand and struggle to find their way to the sea.
For about the last 200 million years, sea turtles have utilized the beaches in Florida as their nesting grounds. Over that time period, in a dark world, the sea turtles had learned that the water was located on the lightest horizon because the ocean, the waters would reflect starlight. In the last 100 years or so in Florida, obviously the lighting situation has changed dramatically. Instead of going towards the water, they go to the brighter light.
Biologists use infrared camera lights to avoid disorienting the turtles. Because when the hatchlings emerge from their nests, they have only a matter of minutes to make it to the sea before they grow dehydrated or fall victim to predators. We made sure all the hatchlings we saw made it to the water. But every summer, tens of thousands of turtles, already a threatened species, are lost to disorientation. I began to think about disorientation, about the way I try to orient myself on an airplane at night, not using the stars, but using the constellations of cities glowing below. Like someone has taken the night sky and flipped it upside down, so that flying between stars and cities, you could understand how, if only for a moment, you might forget which was which.
Chicago bird collision monitors. 10 South Riverside, do you have a bird there? We find about an average of 4,000 birds a year in our spring and fall migration combined. That's 4,000, both dead and injured combined. And we know that we're not finding everything.
And this is a case where you kind of got to move fast in case there's a gull that's going to spot him, because he's in a place where there's a lot of crows and gulls. He's broke the top of his beak. And sometimes that can heal, but that's really kind of sad.
Even though you can't see them, there are thousands and thousands of birds flying over your head every night during migration. We know from early studies that the stars actually serve as a map for birds as they migrate through the night skies.
The problem with lights in a city is that these birds, which have been migrating with their star chart, get into the realm of a city, and suddenly there are all of these artificial stars all over, the dots of windows and lights in the buildings of the city, and that completely disorients the birds. They get into these great canyons of buildings and then run into glass and end up killing themselves.
Birds are not only disoriented by city lights, they are drawn to them. In one study, by volunteers from the Field Museum in Chicago, a building that shut off half its lights recorded a 10-fold decrease in bird deaths compared to the half of the building that remained lit.
The estimate is that there's a billion birds killed across the United States every year by collisions into buildings.
This is a drawer that has a sample of the birds that we've found at just one building in Chicago over the last 30 years. This has a small portion of the 150 species and a very even smaller portion of the over 30,000 specimens that we've picked up at this one place.
When I was young, we'd catch fireflies behind the barn in Maine just by running through the field with a jar. But fireflies, like many other species that rely on darkness to mate, hunt, or hide, are in decline because of changes to their habitat.
When we add light to the environment, that has the potential to disrupt habitat, just like running a bulldozer over the landscape can. Darkness is a necessary habitat for nocturnal animals. So what's the habitat for people?
Our society is moving more and more towards a 24/7 lifestyle where everything's open all night long. People are being asked to work very long hours and working all through the night, and we don't really understand what the long-term health consequences are.
I go to work at 7 in the evening and I clock out at 7:30 in the morning.
I get in at 7 and I get out at 6 a.m.
Everybody stick around, everybody line up. There's a lot of professions that are only at night.
We've evolved all life on the planet for 3 billion years with a reliable daily cycle of 12 hours of bright, broad spectrum light and 12 hours of dark. And it's only been in the last 120 years where the masses of people now have had their dark period dramatically eroded by the use of electric lighting.
Ow! Not nice to slam into the breast cancer patient on the cancer side specifically. Anyhow, that's the sore side he just hit. We're on our way to, I believe it is number 6 of 30 radiation treatments. Everybody with breast cancer thinks about what can they do to reduce a recurrence. But most people I know don't spend an awful lot of time thinking about what got them there. It's just hard to know.
Well, sadly and remarkably, breast cancer is the #1 cancer killer of women in the world. Breast cancer risk has been going up 1% to 2% per year relentlessly, and for reasons that we really don't understand. Worldwide, risk of breast cancer has been going up everywhere, and particularly in those countries that are rapidly industrializing now. What is a hallmark of industrialization? What else changes as societies industrialize? And I was in my apartment in the middle of the night, woke up as I usually do, and there was a street light shining in, and I realized it was bright enough to read. And at that moment, I wondered, could electric power and lighting at night have anything to do with breast cancer risk?
So a series of epidemiological studies were done by different researchers all over the world at the time, looking at cancer rates in shift workers.
The epidemiologic studies that have been conducted have shown that women who do shift work are at 1.5 to 2 times the risk of breast cancer compared to women who do not do shift work.
I really encourage you to go ahead and give me a call on these. You always have your 30-day money-back guarantee. If they're not as good as I say they are, you send them right back. But boy, gorgeous, gorgeous rhodolite earrings.
I used to sell things on TV, and I would work in the overnights selling a lot of jewelry, but also clothing or cosmetics. A lot of shifts would be, you'd get into work at 10 and then go on the air at midnight to 3 a.m., or you might be on the air 3 a.m. to 6 a.m.
If you love rhodolites, do yourself a favor.
1998.
With your listing aid.
We had fun.
That's fun. See, that's easy to do. All you do is you tie it like that. I did need sunglasses.
The notion that light could be harmful flows very natural from the beneficial effects of light. Anything that can heal the human, potentially, if used inappropriately, can harm.
By studying how people respond to different types of light at different times of day, scientists are quickly unraveling the fact that light does more than help us see.
The nervous system has evolved a means for sending information based on time of day and light and darkness. Independent of the visual system, light that comes into the eye stimulates a non-visual pathway right towards the center of the brain. That information about light and darkness is converted into a hormonal signal, the production of melatonin, which in turn is released and circulates throughout the entire body.
During the daytime, when we're awake, our blood samples contain little or no melatonin. But at night, if it's dark, we produce abundant amounts of it.
The normal production of melatonin is what's called a circadian rhythm. Production of melatonin is high during the nighttime, low during the daytime. But we've altered our light-dark environment. The eyes exposed to light at night will cause a very rapid and very strong suppression of this hormone.
By exposing human test subjects to light in the middle of the night, scientists can show how light at night causes a suppression of our melatonin levels, similar to what happens during the day. Dr. Brainerd's lab began collecting 3 types of blood samples: blood collected during the daytime, when melatonin levels are low; blood collected during the night, in darkness, when melatonin levels are high; and blood collected during the night after patients are exposed to light, when their melatonin levels are low. These samples, from healthy young graduate students, were then sent to another scientist named Dr. David Blask.
The shift work data suggested that there's something about shift work that may be associated with increased risk of breast cancer, certainly, and maybe other cancers as well. And there's really no good way to test that in human beings. And so you go to animal models. So we're looking at this surface of the rat. In this region of the rat, we implant human breast cancers that have been grown in donor animals. So we have these 3 different kinds of blood samples. And we take each of these 3 blood samples and literally pump these blood samples directly through this tumor.
In the presence of nighttime blood, rich in melatonin, tumor growth was suppressed. But in the presence of blood from patients exposed to light at night, with lower melatonin levels, tumor growth was rapid and fatal.
If light, and we're still at the hypothesis level, if light exposure at night is a risk factor for a woman to develop breast cancer or for a man to develop prostate cancer, if that's true, then we really need to know how much light and what quality of light and how often and at what time of night it is most problematic.
One night, a few years ago, someone broke into my family's barn in Maine and stole a bunch of my father's tools. My family responded by installing an enormous light on the corner of the barn. We haven't had any break-ins since then, but night has never been quite the same.
The early impetus, as recently as 300-400 years ago, for public lighting was crime. Virtually every ancient civilization that has left clues of some sort, stone tablets or works of history, every civilization had a fear of the night.
This has been an area plagued by narcotics and guns in a perennial fashion. Now you can look along the roadways here and see how dimly lit it is. Darker areas tend to be backfilled by offenders, and they like that because they can operate under the concealment of darkness. They can hide guns, they can hide drugs, they can wear dark clothing and recede into the recesses of the alleyways. That is dark right there. If the area becomes too well lit, oftentimes drug dealers will shoot the lights out to provide their own darkness. When I was here in 1989 and the early 1990s, this park was nothing more than a sand lot. And there were frequently fights in here. There had been a number of homicides and sexual assaults. History is replete with examples of poorly lit nighttime areas that are transformed by light.
The neighborhood is filled with drugs and gangs and shootings and things like that. The lighting is not good at all, but the lighting here is wonderful. It's wonderful. You can see anything, you can see everything that's going on, and it does have a lot to do with lighting.
Changing the lighting is a lot safer for the kids now, you know. It's not like it used to be before.
There is controversy over whether more light leads to less crime. But there is agreement that light seems to make people feel safer, almost like it's built into our genes to move closer to the campfire or to the brightest city.
Light does facilitate social interaction on a massive scale.
The twinkling of cities at night always says to me, look at us as a species. You know, you've seen anthills, you've seen the nests of bowerbirds. This is what we do.
You could think of our era as the one in which the stars disappeared from the sky and reappeared in our city skylines. Which could help explain why I began to feel a kind of affection for the way the city used light as art, as celebration, as tribute. But at this point, I also saw the birds flickering and lost in the city lights, and the streetlight pouring in my bedroom window. Though we might love the light, we might also need the dark.
An important part of our work and my work is to explain and convince my clients that they don't need so much light. They need light where it's required, but not in a very uniform way, not diffuse all over the place. When you have a very diffuse light, you have a lot of glare, and you look here, you have no idea that you have a sky behind, you know, you see the glare, you have no idea where you are. It could be anywhere. So it's still under construction here, it's not finished yet.
When Hervé Descartes designed the lights for New York's newest park, the High Line in Manhattan, he designed them with the night in mind.
You can see the light is completely hidden here. It's underneath here. So you don't see the light source. And look at the effect. Try to imagine a different type of city light. How could we light our city in a more careful way, where you where you feel safe, where you find your direction. It's where you can escape and be connected to a darker sky.
The thing that makes me optimistic about light pollution is that it's a win-win situation. Reducing light pollution hurts virtually no one, and it saves money.
Reducing light pollution, it turns out, is a matter of design. On many lights, the light doesn't go down where it's needed. It actually goes up. As much as half of what we see from space is wasted energy. Partly because wasted light costs the country an estimated $1.5 billion every year, groups like the International Dark Sky Association recommend full cutoff lights that direct light only downward. And many communities across the country, including one just up the road from my childhood home, are enacting new ordinances that restrict wasteful light.
We're now a week away from the November 4th election, a big election for many, many reasons. Here on Mount Desert Island, a lighting ordinance is up for ratification by the town of Bar Harbor, and we're hopeful that it will pass.
This is considered one of the last remaining pristine, dark night skies on the East Coast. There definitely is a sense of urgency in this area. Folks are seeing the big box stores arrive along with big lights in the parking lots and so on.
I went out to different neighborhoods. I'd say, okay, why do you live here and what's so great about living in this part of Bar Harbor? And they all said, we love our night sky. We love going out at night and looking up. It really boils down to, only put light where you need it.
Bar Harbor passed its lighting ordinance, and back at my family's house, we followed suit. Our new light would save us money on the electricity bill, but it was harder to quantify all that we gained as the stars came back. Perhaps the night sky and whatever stars we are lucky enough to see help us reorient, help restore something in us that is lost under city lights.
We have lived under the stars for the vast majority of our experience. So naturally, there's a kind of dislocation. It seems to be that there's this desire to know what the universe is like. This is the mystery that we were all born into.
You could live your life at home, never looking up. You know what'll happen? You'll start thinking of your own environment as all there is. And if that's how you think about where you are, then it rises to an artificial level of importance to you. Whereas when you look at the night sky and you realize how small we are within the cosmos, it's kind of a resetting of your ego.
What I think, when I look up there, I want to go there one day, to experience that. When we look up the sky, you see, this is so big, and then we, just try to look deeper and deeper.
The reason to be able to see the night sky is really, in the end, I think it's more spiritual than practical.
Imagining how far away the stars are and grasping that. And what is coming of age but realizing that you're not the center of the universe?
I think in talking to people about the film, you know, and traveling on a bus or on the subway somewhere and telling people about the story of the film, almost everybody I meet gets a kind of faraway look in their eyes when they start thinking about the night sky and says something like, I remember going to my uncle's house in the countryside, and the first time I saw the Milky Way, it blew my mind, or something along those lines. And I do think that is something we have in common, and my hope is that the film can tap into that and remind us what we're losing. Even though The City Dark explores very measurable effects of light pollution, the physical effects of light pollution, how it affects our health, how it affects ecosystems, birds and turtles, how it affects our use of energy. I think ultimately the film is really about the more subtle, psychological, almost spiritual effects of light pollution. When we lose the night sky as a people, as a culture, as a set of cultures around the world, we lose something that we all have in common, which is this sense of perspective, which is this sense of our place in the universe. I think we risk becoming a more downward-looking, solipsistic, self-centered species when we lose sight of how unbelievably big and mysterious the universe really is. For me, that's something that can be hard to remember when you're living in the hustle and bustle of an amazing city like New York City. I think we need to, if possible, figure out a way to hold both things in our hands at once. The thrill of the city and all that we gain from city lights and from nightlife in the city and from the night shift, which is an important part of our economy, but also our connection to what is really a part of the wilderness and should be a part of the environment, the night and the darkness. I think that the night sky needs our conservation and our preservation as much as the more traditional elements of the natural world.
Major funding for POV has been provided by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation and the National Endowment for the Arts, which believes that a great nation deserves great art. Additional support provided by and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you. POV wants to hear your point of view. Visit our website where you can join the discussion about this program, read the POV blog, and watch additional video, including extended interviews, deleted scenes, and full versions of select POV films. You can also find out about POV films screening in your community. Like us on Facebook or sign up for our newsletter and never miss another POV film. All this and more at pbs.org.